Welcome back, everyone. We had an amazing BlizzCon this past weekend, and as you may have probably noticed, I am not totemly drunk. I am your host, Spider, tonight. Totem is on vacation trying to pull Slambo out of the audio abyss. So tonight we will bring you part two of our BlizzCon special. Last time we did the wild speculations, of which some of it came true, some of it didn't. But I am joined tonight by my co-host and co-host of Heroes Never Die, Edinar. But before I get to Edinar, because I like to mix things up a little different than Totem, first I'd like to thank all our viewers, all our listeners, everybody who tunes into us every week, whether it's Overwatch League Network or Heroes Never Die. Thank you for listening, watching Twitch, all of that. So, back to my co-host, Edinar. We had BlizzCon this last weekend. It came and went. We're left with the ashes of another year of festivities, and nothing's really immortal. Not even Diablo, it seems.
Oh, I
But
see what you did there.
always one step ahead. So, how was your BlizzCon weekend?
I mean, it's always a fun time. I haven't been, which I plan to rectify next year. I've already started looking at places to rent because I'm definitely going to go the Airbnb route instead of the hotel route because it's probably cheaper. Um, especially if I get like 2, 3 people to come with me,
Right.
aka Totem and Spider. Maybe we can get Slambo to come out there. I don't know.
Maybe.
Uh, Maybe we can pull him out of the abyss. But every BlizzCon for the past like 4 years, I take off the Friday off work. I go home. I'm home, wake up, and then sit on my couch, crack a beer, watch the opening ceremonies, and just have a fun time. It's the anticipation, the excitement. Now this year with BlizzCon, some people are really stoked for what was announced at BlizzCon. Others are 100% not stoked. It's a matter of if you like remastered old content.
True.
That's
True.
kind of what it boils down to.
Basically.
Is if you like old content redone so it's newer for you. If you like that, then you will love this BlizzCon. And a lot of people loved it. I never played Warcraft 3, so Warcraft 3 Remastered doesn't appeal to me. Will I get it? Already pre-ordered it.
Got that meat
Um,
wagon.
got that meat wagon mount. That's what sold me on it because I'm a mount collector
There you go.
in WoW. So I definitely did that. I have never played Diablo before,
Wow.
so Diablo's Immortal and all the shenanigans ensuing with that does not matter to me whatsoever because if anything, Diablo Immortal is something I'm going to be like, hey, maybe I'll download it and I can play it in, as Coltrane calls it, ETT, effective toilet time,
There you go.
where most people play mobile games. So maybe I'll play Diablo that way. Hearthstone did announce exactly what everyone thought they were going to announce, a new expansion. Overwatch got what everyone thought they were going to do, a new hero, which we will talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Heroes of the Storm, announced a new character. Ooh, everyone knew that was going to happen. So it was just a bunch of remastered stuff, but it was all stuff people were excited for. And then, of course, all the esports. On top of the World Cup, I really like the Hearthstone Championships.
Mm-hmm.
The StarCraft. If you have not watched the StarCraft and you have the virtual ticket, although you may not need it,
Mm-mm.
go watch the StarCraft finals to see the
Amazing.
first non-Korean champion win it.
Yeah.
It was groundbreaking, and it was something to behold. And the excitement levels. The Mythic Dungeon races were surprisingly probably my favorite
Yeah.
and the closest out of everything outside of the Overwatch World Cup. So overall, I've kind of gotten through like 75% of everything to do with BlizzCon and the virtual ticket and the panels and stuff like that. So I still have a little bit more to go, but I overall loved it. Like most Blizzard fans did. Like, how did you like it?
All right, so I think you hit the key point. Like, if you liked remasters, if you liked the old stuff, it probably struck a chord with you, and that's how it was for me. I grew up on like the original StarCraft, Warcraft 2, Warcraft 3 was really really big in like my social sphere of nerds. So I played a lot of Warcraft 3. So the Reforged edition is something I'm definitely excited for. I also pre-ordered it, and I don't typically pre-order games. Like, there has to be something real amazing. And, I do play World of Warcraft, but the mount wasn't really the driving factor for me. It was more the Reforged edition. The new hero from Heroes of the Storm looks pretty cool. She's an original hero from, the Nexus, which is different. People tend to not care about her, but they kind of upped the production value of her. Like, if you watch her, like, skills in game, it's far and above, like, anything else they've done in the game so far. So she looks pretty cool. Honestly, if you are an Overwatch fan, which I assume you are, if you are listening or watching this, you probably have to be fairly happy because we got a new character. We got a new cinematic.
We got 1.5 new characters.
I would say we got 2 new characters. Why sell him short? Or why sell Ash short? Who knows? Which one are we counting as the half? But, you can see him behind me. Spoiler alert. But, overall, I was, fairly happy with the way BlizzCon turned out. I like Diablo. It's okay. I've played it. I enjoy it from time to time, but I'm not hardcore. And I can understand why the hardcore fans were upset. But I just thank God we are not a Diablo podcast, because this would be an entirely different show for that. So we are going to talk about Overwatch, and that is going to be...
The salt would be real.
Right. We are not going to talk about Diablo anymore tonight. If you want to go talk about Diablo, there is a YouTube video with hundreds of thousands of dislikes that would absolutely love your comment to be deleted. Okay, I had to get that last one in there. So, as far as Overwatch goes, I was happy with the character announcement. I was happy with the animated short. I was disappointed that that's basically all we got. We really didn't get, new modes, all the wild stuff we came up with last week. We really didn't get any of that. We got the new character and the new short. And while she's awesome, which we will absolutely talk about, the other side of the coin was the esports side, which we will also talk about. But that was actually somewhat disappointing too. I was actually going to bring up the fact that I was actually, by the time the StarCraft final rolled around, I was more excited for that than I was the World Cup final for Overwatch. And that hasn't happened in years for me. Like, for me to be that hyped for StarCraft. And the fact that he pulled it off at the end was amazing. So even if you're not a StarCraft fan, at least watch that last match, like the last match of the last, match, I guess. Because it was in a very tense match, even if you don't understand StarCraft. And then just to see the look on his face when he knows he won was, like, amazing. And you didn't really get that in World Cup because they knew they won after the first map, so they were kind of like, which you should probably know who won by now. But like I said, we are going to talk about Overwatch tonight, so let's stop beating around the bush and let's talk about it. So the first thing that we got was Papa Jeffy Cap, our dev and savior. Praise him. I'm getting my timing down, so we're getting there. Hearthstone had some mic problems. So, during the opening announcement, Jeff Kaplan bursts onto stage, crazy amount of energy, brings the hype, says, you know what? You guys know what we like to do every year. We have this new animated cinematic, and I'm not going to screw around. Here it is. And then they debuted Reunion, which focuses on McCree and his interaction with the Deadlock Gang in current time. So this is one of the few that actually take place during the current time. So it's not like a setup to previous, like kind of how Totem had speculated last week. And it was pretty good. I mean, we got to meet the Deadlock Gang. We got to meet their leader, Ash, and her Omnic butler, Bob, which we will go into much more detail because they were also announced as Hero 29. But we also got to meet the other members of the Deadlock Gang, which was like an Omnic sniper, the triplets, which all have an affinity to a certain race in StarCraft because they all had differentiating tattoos. One had like a Protoss tattoo, one had like a Kerrigan and Zerg tattoo. It was actually really cool. And then the other one you don't see much, but he has the Terran tattoo. So I thought that was pretty cool. I did like the Omnic sniper as well. But overall it's like this huge, like spaghetti Western feel. Like that's what it conjured up in me, is like the old timey Westerns. And McCree, kind of has a run in with the Deadlock Gang. They of course fight hardcore Western style. You got like the sound effects, the tumbleweed, all of that fun stuff going on. So if you enjoy westerns or at least remember what western movies are, you probably liked it. But when all was said and done, McCree got his prize, which actually turns out to be a possible another hero, and we are introduced to an Omnic or robot. I'm kind of hesitant to say what she is because she's unlike any Omnic we've ever seen. So I don't know if I want to throw her in that category, but we later found out her name is Echo. And I'm sure we'll learn more and more about Echo, but for now, all we know is she has a past with McCree. She also is a huge part of Overwatch, and we also found out that McCree got Winston's call to come back. He makes the note that they're getting the band back together, but he kind of says, like, that's not really for me anymore, but they need you. And he sends Echo to Winston. And overall, I thought it was a really good short, but I want to hear, kind of your takeaways from this, because I could talk for hours about the lore and the speculation and stuff, but I want to know, like, as soon as it was over, what were your initial thoughts on it?
Okay, so first off, top 3 cinematic shorts for me. Like, and it's not even close. Like, it's top 3. The Genji Hanzo one, it will forever be number 1 until something drastic happens. But this is second or third. Like, it was amazing. Just the feel of it, the little nuances, like you said, about the cinematic, about, like, the triplets and the Protoss and the Terror, all that stuff. That was awesome. And you could tell the tension and the sexual history between McCree and Ash, because it's there. You could feel it through the cinematic short. Like, they have a history, and that kind of was hinted at the end, right, when McCree goes riding off on his bike and he's got a picture of him and Ash when they were younger, and that was cool. I honestly, at the end of it, I was like, did they just jabate us? I was like,
I think everybody thought that.
Like, I'm like, okay, I see Ash, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna get Ash, and then they bring out Echo, and I'm like, did they just debate the whole thing, and now we're getting Echo as our next character? And then obviously it was wrong, but, like, it was one of those, like, oh, they did, like, with this huge plot twist at the end, because everyone thought it was a nuclear weapon that was being transported, and then it's like, no, it's it's Echo, it's it's Athena in a droid form, essentially. Like, a lot of people thought it was Athena, and it's not. Echo obviously predates McCree joining Overwatch initially, because Echo had no idea who Winston was. So, like, because when McCree's like, find the monkey.
See, I took that a different way. I think she just didn't understand the reference. Like, I think she may know Winston because he said, say hi to the monkey. Like, he expected her to know it, but she didn't understand the reference. And that's when he was like, oh, right, scientist.
The scientist. So, I don't know. But, like, I want to know what Echo is.
Right.
Like, what is she? Like, she needs to be in game or something of that nature. So I think it's a strong hint at a future character. I also thought that maybe they don't introduce Ash as the new character, and Bob is the actual new character. Like, for a while, I thought Bob was going to be the new character.
I could see that.
At this. Because, like, when you talk about the cinematics, like, you look at the Junkrat one, and you have Queen of Junkertown. Like, she was, like, the lead of all of it. Like, granted, you didn't see her like you see Ash, but, like, she's the lead of everything, and then it's the kind of like the minions that are the characters. Ash is the leader, Bob is the minion.
Right.
And I don't think anyone would have been upset if Bob was the new character.
Not at all.
The fact we got both of them in one character is actually awesome. But I love the entire feel of all of this. You saw why Route 66 is all messed up. Like, she caused the damage on Route 66. So it will be very interesting to see some of the lore. It frustrated the hell out of me, though, because every time I see one of these cinematics, I'm just like, I want more. Like, I need more. Like, you showed me this 8-minute clip, and I have 50 questions that I know will probably never be answered. And I'm just like, oh, this is infuriating right now.
Well, we can hope with
But
that maybe they'll get answered because they hired, storytellers.
I mean, they hired storytellers, and then one thing in one of the panels, I can't remember which one because I've been on a panel binge from BlizzCon. Is they talked about you know the the story team,
Mm-hmm.
like the people who come up with this, and he's like, it was on one of the Overwatch panels, and he was like, we have stuff like the comics, the shorts that you just saw, the books, and I'm like, wait, did he just say books?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, because we don't have any books right now.
Mm-mm.
But that is an avenue I would not hold against them from doing because they've done that in previous. They've done that quite a lot in Warcraft. They've done it a few in Diablo. They have a few books. Hearthstone doesn't matter. Heroes doesn't matter. I mean, Overwatch is the only one that is missing the background lore from like books and stuff like that, which they could make numerous books for. So maybe that's some way they go about to get the lore to us. I don't know.
I do hope we get more lore because that was actually the first thing I said to the people I was watching it with. I looked at it and I was excited about the new heroes introduced. I was excited for everything, but the first thing I said as soon as it ended was there is so much lore in those 8 minutes, more than we've gotten in any short before that, outside of maybe Maze. It's just crazy that they can fit that in there, and I think you're absolutely right. I think we need more, whether they bring it to us in game through more cinematics. I'd like to actually personally to see more of like the Doomfist style animation, just because that was really fun to watch. So like the key like pivotal like battle moments I think could be animated that way really well. But I think for like the more character driven stuff, I think you're absolutely right. I think a book might be the best way to go, and you're right, they have done books in every other franchise outside of Overwatch, so I don't see why they wouldn't do it. I just hope that they hire writers that can kind of catch the feel of the characters the right way, because these are very specific characters with very specific traits, and to not do them justice, I think more so than any of their other universes could really hurt it. I mean, if you look all the way back to Beta, look at how mad people were about a pose from Tracer that was out of character. Now think about like a whole
Buttgate.
Exactly. So think about like a whole book. So it's something to think about. And like I said, I could talk for hours about lore, but we have enough to talk about. So let's talk about a character that really matters, Bob and her companion Ash. So Ash was announced as the 29th hero through this, through the cinematic, and then, after that rolled, Kaplan said, who's going to be the next character? Is it going to be this sweet Omnic sniper? Is it going to be Bob? Is it going to be, one of the triplets or all of the triplets? And then, he was like, of course it's going to be Ash. Come on, guys. Like, we teased you, Echo, but it's going to be Ash. So we got to see Ash a little bit in action, but I'm going to kind of jump to the actual in-depth panel, because the first thing they really showed at the in-depth panel was her origin story. And, it's done in the similar style as we've seen the other origin stories, the kind of still animated, hand-drawn type of style, real artistic. And, we kind of learned some of her backstory. Like, she came from a wealthy family, but was mostly ignored. Like, she was kind of on her own. Bob was her only companion over the years, and that kind of led her down like a dark path. She started kind of lashing out for attention because she wasn't getting it, and then she ran into Jesse McCree, and they founded the Deadlock Gang. She basically said, I didn't have a family that paid attention to me, so I made my own with 3 other people, one of which was highly alluded to be McCree. So I thought it was a pretty good origin story. Like, I liked the kind of the wealthy spin on it, and the southern charm. It definitely hails from like Texas. It feels like New Texas or whatever they'd call it. But what did you think about her origin story?
I mean, it was interesting. We've never had a character who like they've done origin stories before, but not like from a young age origin
Hmm.
stories, at least that I remember. Like it's always like, okay, Doomfist, came up through evil, rose the ranks, stuff like that. This was more like, hey, I'm 10, 12 years old. I was a spoiled brat who kind of didn't have any attention, and Bob was my butler who took care of me and is my closest friend. And I turned to crime, and I realized I really liked crime, and partly because I wasn't shown any attention from my family and stuff like that. Like it was one of those. It's like a bad '80s sitcom
It did.
storyline, but I love it. A bad '80s storyline to a sitcom may sound bad, but that is my jam. Like I love those kind of storylines. So I mean I really liked it, and then to kind of integrate like the entire origin story throughout her, younger, teenage, older, like meeting Jesse, stuff like that. It was very interesting. One thing I will say, did you catch the Jeff Kaplan wanted poster in
No,
her
I missed
origin
it.
story? In the origin story, when she's leaving the precinct and Bob is holding up the umbrella,
Hmm.
in the background on like the screen, they have like a wanted poster, like a digital wanted poster because it's in the future,
Right.
and it doesn't say Jeff Kaplan. It's Jeff Kaplan.
I
Like
have
if
to
you
go back
look at
and
it,
look at that.
you're just like, oh yeah, no, that's Jeff. So that's a cute little thing. So we can officially say Jeff Kaplan exists in the Overwatch universe.
There you go, or at least some distant relative of his that looks a
Yep.
lot like him.
Yeah.
But
So Jeff Kaplan could become a playable character.
wrestle with Jeff, prepare for death.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I see. I don't even know how to segue from that, but so kind of capstoning it all, all the animated features. She is voice acted by Jennifer Hale, which this personally excited me, and I had to put this in the show notes because I'm a huge voice actor nerd. But if you don't know who Jennifer Hale is, she's been in something you've seen or heard her from. She was female Shepard in the Mass Effect series, the original trilogy. She was the female trooper in SWTOR. She was in Halo 5, HOTS, Diablo 3, literally hundreds of others. And she's like a huge powerhouse in the voice acting industry. And
Yes.
when they designed Ash, they actually designed her. The principal designer designed her with Jennifer Hale in mind. But they did the standard tryout procedure, did all that, and then they did like a blind test, and he still picked Jennifer Hale. He's like, yeah, no, that's Ash. So they kind of went forward with that. And one of the cool things is this is one of the first cinematics that they were able to actually have Jennifer Hale and Matt Mercer record together, like they recorded in the booth together. And I think that really helped the cinematic because you kind of get the tension, you get the feelings that they have. And I didn't get a whole lot of that in the previous cinematics. Like Reinhardt and Brigitte in the Reinhardt cinematic kind of feels a little flat now if you go back and watch it. Compared to these two interacting, because Reinhardt and Brigitte should have a pretty I don't want to say relationship because that makes it sound wrong, but kind of father-daughter dynamic, and it doesn't really feel that way. It feels kind of flat now. So go back and do yourself a favor and watch that. But I was excited for this. I don't know if you have any input on this, but I was excited for this.
I mean, I will say this one thing: if you watched all the panels, and again, I cannot name which panel it exactly is on. It's when they talked about her and Matt Mercer, in the studio, like ad libbing
Mm-hmm.
together back and forth, and they were using that ad lib between the two of them because they're two very well respected voice actors that they just let them go.
Yep.
Just let them go do their thing. They're going to work things out, and we're going to use it. And to me, that's a sign of like, amazing, like just amazing. Like you said, Jennifer Hale is someone who is, you don't know the name, but you know a bunch of her voices.
Right.
She's been in everything from Star Wars Rebels to World of Warcraft to now Overwatch to she's been in DuckTales.
Yep.
She's been in basically 50% of everything you've probably seen animated in the past 10 years. Like it almost feels like that. She's just one of those voice actors. And so you know who it is. And to get her into the Overwatch universe is insane. It's a huge get for the Overwatch community. Now we just need more Ash storyline because we need more Bob.
Right.
Like we don't care as much about Ash as we care more about Bob.
Right. So let's get to the ability breakdown so we can talk about more Bob, because Bob plays an integral part in her kit. So starting with Ash, when they designed Ash, they really wanted to focus on a more weapon-driven hero, and they said this in multiple interviews. Basically, they have two types of heroes they classify. They have ability heroes like Doomfist, Sombra, heroes that you have to press buttons to do things, and then you have more weapon-driven heroes like Widowmaker, Pharah, and they wanted a new character to be more weapon-driven because we haven't really had one of those. I would honestly since Ana. Like, I would consider Ana kind of like 50-50, like, but so she is the first weapon-driven hero. So her gun is called the Viper. It has 2 modes of fire. You can fire from the hip. It's pretty fast. It's semi-auto. Does 40 damage to the body, 80 damage to the head. Typical 2x head crit box. But you can also zoom in, similar to Widowmaker, and that provides higher damage but slower fire rate, and it's actually 85 to the body and 170 to the head. The other key thing about her weapon is it is individually reloaded, has 12 shots. You one shot at a time, but you can actually interrupt that. So, if you're in a firefight and you need like 1 or 2 shots, you can duck behind and then, pop back out and pop 2 shots. You just have less shots overall. So pretty good feeling weapon. Her first ability is Dynamite. This is her damage ability. It throws a, kind of that stack of, new age dynamite. It throws it in an arc in front of her. And it, after a short delay, after touching the ground, that is a key thing I don't see too many people mentioning. It will stay in the air and not detonate forever, but after it touches the ground, there's a short delay and it will explode. Or while it is in the air, you can actually shoot it, either scoped or unscoped, and it will immediately explode. And it does a good chunk of damage. It does 75 for the initial explosion and 100 burning damage over time. The key things to kind of realize about this is, unlike Widowmaker's dot, healing does not remove the damage. It just, heals you up and then you take the ticking damage. The only thing that will actually remove it is immunities like Zarya Bubble, Wraith Form, Moira's Fade, stuff like that. So it is actually a pretty interesting ability. It can self-damage Ash. She takes a percentage of damage. Basically, if you take the full explosion and burning, it does 87 damage to Ash. So that's actually almost half her life. She is a 200 HP hero. I would consider it her movement ability, but it's actually another gun. It's called the Coach Gun. It's on PC. It's bound to the shift. It does 90 damage point blank, but it is a shotgun, so it has very aggressive fall off, like super aggressive. So this is mostly going to be used as a movement ability, because if it hits anybody in the cone of fire, it knocks them back. But it also knocks Ash back the opposite direction of whatever you're facing. So you can actually use it to knock her up if you point it at the ground, knock her back, knock her at an angle. It is a huge source of mobility, and it's actually much higher than a lot of movement abilities we see from other characters. Like, she can reach the high ground in Numbani point A, whereas Doomfist cannot. So it is actually pretty significant source of mobility. And finally, what Edinar has been waiting for, her ultimate. So rather than take things into her own hand, she calls her big Omnic Butler Bob. So her ultimate is Bob. He lands pretty much right in front of her and then runs forward a large distance. Like, for most maps, it will be until he hits a wall, but he runs forward until he collides with either a player or an object. Wall, cart, pole. For some reason, I hit a pole on Numbani today and it pissed me off. But already mad at certain things. But when he hits a hero, he knocks them straight up in the air and does 120 initial damage. And while they're in the air, they don't have air control outside of movement abilities. So like Genji Dash, Tracer Blink. But they can't normally air strafe like you normally would. And then at that point, wherever Bob stops, whether he throws somebody up or hits a wall, he kind of turns into like a Torbjorn turret on steroids. Like, he aimbots, locks onto everybody, and he does, there have been differing reports, but it seems to be like 80 to 100 damage per second. It's significant, but there is fall off on it. So kind of, think about that. But the cool part about Bob is, and as we alluded to earlier, he acts as like a seventh man on your team. So he can capture points, he can be slept, he can be healed, he can be nano boosted, which is a really good strategy. But basically anything a hero could do, he could do. And no lie, I was playing on the PTR right before this, and somebody sent Bob on a capture point, and he capped the point because none of us could get onto the point to contest him. So it is actually a really good strategy to use Bob to retake the point, unless the team is, highly coordinated. Now, granted, we were 6 ashes, so as soon as we saw Bob, we all ran away. But but she feels pretty good. So, what do you think about her kit, Ed?
Okay, so here's the thing. I love her. All right, for as far as her gun, the Viper. By the way, best main ability name in the game, the Viper. Okay, well, just get that out of the way. I like the fact that it's, when you scope in, you don't. It's if you get a headshot, it's not an insta kill on a 200 health point character, but it's pretty darn close. You can still take out tracers, stuff like that. You don't have a quick reload when you're scoped in, so you can't get like consecutive headshots or even a headshot and a body shot off right in a row. They do have time to move.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like it's one of those main abilities where I think people are going to be using her more scoped in
Mm-hmm.
instead of her main ability unless they're getting pressured, just because it's more effective. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like God, Symmetra. People use her right click instead of her left click because it's just more effective.
I can see that.
The dynamite is going to be the what makes the difference between a good Ash and a bad Ash. Because it's one of those things where it's great to get behind a Reinhardt shield, like throw it behind a Reinhardt shield. It's just a matter of if you want to let it drop to the ground and let it explode, or if you want to try and shoot it while it's just over Reinhardt's shield or something like that. I think more often than not, I would think that you're going to get better return on throwing it, letting it explode on its own,
Mm-hmm.
and then zoom like scoping in and shooting people. Like for instance, you're going to get a lot of people throwing it behind a Reinhardt shield. Well, what's going to happen? The initial flick from Reinhardt is to go and block that with his shield. So what happens when he turns around? Well, then you scope in and you get a couple headshots in on Reinhardt, something like that. So I think that's going to be the initial thing with that. The coach gun, the knockback, it's honestly it's a better escape mechanic than I think Widow's grappling hook is, and you're gonna hear me compare her to Widow
Mm-hmm.
quite a lot because it's weird to think that like okay she's not like set up like a normal sniper but she's a sniper.
Mm-hmm.
uh with the way she zooms in she's essentially a sniper. I like for Widow when she's getting like 1v1s, like if somebody comes up by her only move is to grappling hook away, and usually a lot of times you just can't. This with her abilities, coach gun, you can either get away height wise or you can shoot them point blank, do damage to them, knock them back, and knock you back. So
Right.
you have more escapability with the coach gun, and you can get to places most of the places Widow can already get to by shooting yourself up in the air. The ultimate Bob. So one thing we didn't go over, and I think I have it right, is Bob's health is at 1200.
That's correct.
So Bob is a beefy character.
By far.
Bob can take a beating. Like it's 2 Roadhogs. Just think of it that way. Just without healing, imagine trying to take down 2 Roadhogs while you have 6 other people attacking you. Like we need to do some testing on this because I want to know what a nano charging Bob does damage wise. Because if you said like it does 120 initial throw damage,
It should be 180, right?
it should be 180. Okay, I don't
Yeah.
quite know everything, but like if you can nano boost, throw him in there, and he takes out 1 or 2 characters just from that, complete game changer. And then he
Oh
just
yeah.
turrets down and just goes to town, and he has to be dealt with immediately. And it's like, okay, we have this 7th person that they have to focus on while the other rest of the 6 of us kind of converge and just take them out while they're dealing with Bob.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's going to be the big thing with Bob is just going to be one of those mandatory characters when you have payload maps, when you have 2 CPs, stuff like that. I don't think, the King of the Hill type maps, I don't think Bob's going to be as necessary, just because it's less, we got to keep attacking the point, because most people play off the point.
Right.
But Bob does not seem like, from initial first perspective, to be super overpowered, but with the right team and with the right players, Bob is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Bob is ridiculous. Her whole kit is ridiculous. Like, the only thing she's missing is a heal, really, because she can get through whatever. Now, I will be interested in one thing I want to check, and this is something we can test out, is what happens if you try and knock back someone with a shield up. So
Nothing.
you're talking big at she. Okay, so that it doesn't knock them back at all, but she gets knocked back.
Yes.
So even against shields, she's knocked back and she damages the shield.
Right.
So it's one of those things where, oh, that is such a powerful ability.
Yeah, she has a lot of combos too that I noticed. Like you had mentioned that it's hard to hard scope and then body shot to kill someone. Actually, I found that you can animation cancel and quick scope and body shot and headshot something, and your time to kill on a 200 HP character in optimal range is like half a second. So it is almost like a Widow headshot if you can aim. Like it's highly dependent on aim. Like highly dependent. Like I can do it every single time on the training bots, but as soon as I went into an actual match with people, I pulled it off like once or twice. And I imagine bigger characters, more HP, you can't do that. But one thing to keep in mind is, in that gameplay trailer, they showed her with the coach gun and then knocking Genji back and then headshotting him. You can absolutely do that because that's, 260 damage. So you can actually do that to a Reaper or a Mei if they don't react fast enough. Like, she has a lot of interesting things and a lot of interesting combos that you can pull off together. Like, it's kind of funny because, again, in that gameplay trailer, you see her, kind of knock McCree out. And you can absolutely do that if you headshot any 200 HP hero first, because they're in, quick melee kill range. She is, when Jeff Kaplan said they wanted a high mechanical skill hero, she absolutely fills that void. But I think you hit on it. I think she feels like a really specific place. Like, do you think, like, on Anubis, you would, like Anubis A, would you ever run her over Widowmaker?
Yes.
Okay.
I personally would, just because it's one of those things where if they go shield heavy, Widowmaker is very much handicapped on point A. But the nice thing is and this is, I think, where the difference between the two is, when they're running, let's say, a goats comp or something of that nature, because we all know goats is just the worst.
Just the worst.
The worst. But Widow versus Goat is utterly. Widow's useless.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Ash and Bob are actually completely viable, because you have an attack that you can hit the range shots. You have your dynamite you can throw over the shields to attack from behind. And then your ultimate is, I'm just going to throw Bob at you and destroy you that way and throw you all up in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and there's nothing you can do about it. Like, it's one of those things where Ash is a better Widowmaker. Like people love playing Widowmaker in this meta just because they like playing Widowmaker. Even you saw that in the World Cup.
Guilty.
People love playing Widowmaker because you can get those game-changing shots. But the thing is Widowmaker is so easily counterable.
Mm-hmm.
And because all you need to do is Winston, Diva, Doomfist, anything. Because as soon as you can close Widowmaker, she's done. She's just done for. But you can't close in that way, Ash.
Right.
Now I'd be interested, and I didn't do as much testing as you did. How is the fall from her damage?
She has pretty long range on the scoped. It's not infinite like Widowmaker's is, but it is quite far. It's like I'd say she starts feeling fall off on her scoped in about 50 meters, which is pretty far from most maps. The fall off on the hip fire is much more aggressive. I'd say it's closer to like soldier's range. So she does suffer from fall off. But in my testing earlier, and you know, I don't know what ranks these people are. I could duel with a Widow on most maps. I had a little bit of trouble on Blizzard World Point A because Widow has so many long sight lines. So I'd imagine like King's Row, Anubis A, if we're attacking and they're defending. I could see Ashe having trouble with Widowmaker comps. But for a lot of other maps, I think she could go toe-to-toe because if you know how to leverage that dynamite, you can pop Widow off of her perch and then move in closer and, you know, either get a kill or at least disrupt her. But that kind of brings me to the other point is, you know, the other side of the coin is McCree, what they would consider like the close range hit scan assassin. You know, I did a lot of thinking on this, and I don't think we're going to spend as much time on McCree as we did on Widowmaker, because I feel like anywhere you could run McCree, you could pretty much run Ashe with more options. The only time you'd really want a McCree is if they're running something you really need to CC, like a Doomfist Sombra comp. Like, other than that, Ashe is completely viable, at least in my eyes.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Okay, how is she going to McCree? And I'm like, well, the only time you want McCree, and I didn't even think about Sombra as much, because with Sombra you can turn and hit your coach gun,
right,
and it just decimates her, because she's so low health. Is if you're getting pestered by a Doomfist,
right?
That's the only time I could see taking a McCree over an Ashe. Maybe possibly Farah, maybe, but not even then, because you can scope in as Ashe.
Yeah, see, I ran against 2 Farahs today, and I shut both of them down, like, on fairly long maps, too. Like, one of them was Blizzard World, and the other one was Gibraltar. So I feel like, you know, she's just as good against Farah, unless it's, like, a real tight map. I could see her having trouble with Farah just because of the time to kill, but...
Yeah, I can see that, too. Now, one thing I do test this, it's something we're going to have to do, is Bob versus Orisa Halt.
As far as I know, Halt moves him. I didn't directly see it, but if he acts like a hero, I don't see why it wouldn't move him, because I saw other things move him. Like, if you run him into the payload will push him. So I don't see why Halt wouldn't move him. But yeah, I think that's something we could verify.
Sorry, I may not be thinking the thing that Orisa does that like turns her gold. So like when Reinhardt charges,
her fortify.
Fortify, that's it.
Yeah,
fortify.
I would think
fortify stop Bob.
I would think so. I think he would still make the throwing motion, so anybody around her would still get thrown up, but she would probably stay still if it's consistent. Like that's the key. If it's consistent, we have tested that if she hits a if Bob hits a Doomfist, if he hits a Brigitte or a Reinhardt charging, they both fall down. So they did make that at least consistent with how other interactions. So I would imagine that if he hits an Orisa who fortifies, he'll stop, throw his arms up in the air, try to throw anybody around him, and then just go to turret mode.
Okay.
So that, I mean, that could be an absolute viable strategy. I mean, when I play tank and I play Orisa, I do that all the time to stop like Reinhardt charges. So that could be a really good strategy to step forward, fortify, stop Bob, step back, throw down your shield, and then just try to out DPS him as long as he doesn't get healed or nano boosted, because
Yeah.
he will tear through that shield quite fast.
Yeah, I mean, I could see Bob, like, if Ash and Bob. We need to come up with a better name for Ash and Bob instead of just Ash Bob. A Shab? A Shab? Bash?
Bash.
Bash? All right, we'll go with Bash. If Bash becomes super popular, I could see Baguette becoming fairly popular.
Mm-hmm.
Even more so because, like, she can stun, knock down Bob.
Right.
Like, if you can get rid of the toss up and the initial 120 damage that he does, that'd be huge, because then he just becomes a turret standing in place, and you just have to deal with that. You don't have to deal with the let's get thrown up in the air and be like so vulnerable up in the air. Like, I can see so many Ash Widowmaker comps coming out of this, honestly. Like, throw Bob in, Bob shoots people up in the air, and then just Widowmakers like having like this dream of
it's like Duck Hunt at that point.
Oh my god, this is amazing. They can't do anything, and that's a comp that I could see be useful going forward.
All right, so let's wrap up our Ash discussion. So overall, how do you feel about her design? Like, just last thoughts. We talked a lot about pretty much everything. So is this a character that you could see yourself actively playing, regardless of how like powerful she is? Take numbers out of it. Like, how does she feel to play, and would you play her regularly?
Ash main.
Ash main. There you go.
I'm an Ash main. Like, I just played. I love, but Widowmaker takes. All right, so Ash takes a lot of aim, but Widowmaker takes like pure aim.
Right.
If that makes sense. Like, Widowmaker is pure. All right, you need to click with those headshots. Ash doesn't rely solely on just headshots. She has so much more to her kit. So I think Ash is a better version of a sniper if you're not as good of a like headshot Widowmaker. So like, if you love Widowmaker right now, like I love Widowmaker, but like I'm okay at popping headshots. I'm okay at it. I'm not great. Ash is probably more for me because I can hit those headshots from time to time and really wreak some havoc, but the rest of her kit is so much better than Widowmaker's. So I will be able to benefit my team more. So I fully plan on making an Ash only account.
Nice. Yeah. I could see myself transitioning into her because I was a McCree main first, and then as time went by, I kind of went out to other heroes, and then I came back to Widowmaker in the last few seasons when she got really strong. But I've always been a hit scan player, so she's right up my alley. So I will probably be right there with you. I don't know if I'll make an Ash only account. I'll probably just practice her on one of my other accounts and then just start playing her on my main, because she fits my main playstyle pretty well. But overall, I really like the design. I like Bob. I like all the abilities feel really good. The only thing that kind of sticks out to me is the dynamite hitbox. It's very unforgiving, which could just be practice. Like, I was getting better as it was going on. And I did find out that if you just throw it and you keep your crosshair where you throw it, after like 1.5 to 2 seconds, if you just tap fire without zooming in, it will hit that dynamite every single time. That doesn't give you a lot of options because it's the same range every time. So if you're trying to go for like a really far shot or, a really close shot, that doesn't work. But if you're at medium range, kind of the optimal range for her hip fire, that actually works really well. So pro tip, I've already found that out. Just throw it out, don't move your crosshair, and then just tap fire, and you'll hit it almost every time. Or you can, quick tap it and fire a few bullets, and then you'll hit it. It'll take some practice, but I really like Ash. And I'm sure we will talk more and more about her as she gets closer to release, once she's in comp, all that. But we got other stuff to talk about. Like, there was a lot a lot of news pertaining to Ash that came out pretty much. So we're going to go around, kind of the community topics. The first one was an interview that came out of BlizzCon, which was with Jeff Kaplan and Nicole Gilliette. It was an interview with Reddit. They do this pretty much every year. It's usually Jeff Kaplan and somebody from the Overwatch team. Like, he usually pulls somebody in there. And like I said, it was with the Reddit admins, so I would encourage you to go read the full thing. It's, a sticky thread on our Overwatch right now. If you generally shy away from the Reddit, go there, click that. You don't have to read any of the garbage on the Reddit. You can just read this, because it actually did pertain some pretty cool stuff. Like, the first question was, what would you change about Overwatch? Which is actually pretty cool to ask, the game director of it. And he said the one of the main things he wants to change is currently in competitive, they have kind of what they call a single match queue system. Like, you play a match and then it drops everybody out, and then you have to start a new match. Whereas quick play runs like a rolling queue, so it keeps trying to stuff people in until a lot of people drop out, or it's like super one-sided, and then it will pull you back out and try to restart it. He said he actually wants to move quick play to a more single match queue system, just to kind of, I guess, increase the how good quick play feels right now. He said that would lead to more balanced matches, more fun, stuff like that. Obviously, I think they would still probably keep you queued in. Like, you wouldn't have to hit the button every time, but they would just pull it out. So what do you think about that, Ed? Do you think quick play would benefit from that, or do you like it how it is?
I think it would benefit tremendously from it's one of those things. If you're in quick play group of like 3, and if you just want to keep staying queued, you don't want to exit out, queue back up. And this happens a lot of times with like when I queue with Totem and stuff like that, is you just keep matched against the same group.
Mm-hmm.
Or like it may flip flop. Like, if you're a 2-stack and there's another 2-stack, that other 2-stack flip flops from being on your team to the other team, back to your team, back to the other team. And it's just like, we're just playing the same people over and over again. Like, we just need to back out. Like, this way, if it starts over fresh after every match, it kind of goes back to the internal SR for quick play. Because, I mean, they have to have some form of SR for quick play.
They do. Absolutely.
Yeah, like, it goes back to every match is going to have that internal SR that for quick play. So you're going to get, like you said, better matches, less skewed matches, stuff like that. So yeah, this is something that I kind of wish they'd come out with sooner rather than later.
Well, to that, they did say it would take a pretty large technical overhaul on the backside, so don't expect it soon, but it could be something in the pipeline. They asked other questions, like how maps come about, fan concepts, how they feel about it. They asked about crossplay between Xbox and PS4, which Jeff said, we would like it, but nothing to announce now. Typical PR answer. They
did say they're in talks with Xbox and PlayStation outside of this interview.
Okay.
So they are like in legit talks to have, like, I don't think it was cross-play, but it was linked accounts.
Linked accounts. Okay, that's a first step. I think that's a good idea. I mean, Fortnite's kind of pioneered that, and as much as I like to make fun of Fortnite and its 12-year-old fan base, it has done a lot for the gaming community. It's also done bad things for the gaming community, but it's done a lot of good stuff. So we'll
yes.
They also talked about Ash's designs, inspirations. He kind of mentioned who he wants to see play her, like Pine and Carpe and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool. We did learn that Echo is not directly related to Athena. However, he worded it kind of vaguely. He just said, during development, when they designed this robot character, at one point during one of the pieces of art, which a lot of people have seen with her on it, they slapped an Athena logo on her just to kind of break up the design. But he said outside of that, he said at one point it had like a Vishkar logo on it. So he said, don't read too much into that. And they kind of made a joke about it. The actual news to come out of this is Jeff mentioned that the winter event isn't going to really change this year. The 2 May events, May Snowball Offensive, and then the Yeti Hunt are coming back. They are going to winterfy a new map. And then, of course, there will be new holiday skins. He did also talk about that they have 6 heroes in development, but nothing beyond that. There are 6 heroes in development. And that was pretty much it. There was some pretty cool stuff in here, so I would encourage you to read it. But anything that I missed stand out to you, Ed, or do you think I hit all the...
No, I think you kind of hit it all. A lot, traditional PR answers.
Yeah.
Like, yes, we have 6 characters in development. We have others like that we're talking about, so on and so forth. Like, nothing we can say for certain, stuff like that. So, I mean, yeah, it's he gave the typical PR questions, answers there. So you hit all of the important parts.
All right. So the next thing I kind of want to talk about is we got to finally try the World Cup viewer. The in-game client where you can go in, watch the games live in the actual game client. And this was kind of our first taste for it. It was the beta, so if you're on PC, you could go in there and try it out. I actually watched probably 3 or 4 matches in this client, and I got to spectate all my favorite players. I followed Sherfor around for a while. Gushui from China, I got to see some of his crazy Winston antics. And personally, I will probably watch a lot of games this way just because I get to pick to see what I watch. And, I don't always get it right. Like, there were multiple times I missed a lot of action, but I got to see what I wanted to see. And while it doesn't have the casters in it, you could always go back and watch it with the casters. I actually had it up on the TV, so I was watching it, and there's no delay when you watch it in the viewer. So that was actually pretty interesting. So I could watch it and then say, hey, watch this diva bomb. And my daughter would be like, what diva bomb? And then it would, go over the top and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool. But overall, it had some cool features. Like, you got the hero overlays, so you could see like health, alt usage, shields, if they were stunned, kind of like the little bubble that they gave you when they do the top down view. You could do that from any view. So that was actually really interesting if you have trouble seeing, or if you want to, as an analyst, you want to break it down position wise, you can see them much easier than, the outlets or the outlines through the wall. Replays, I played with the replay feature a little bit. The slow-mo was good. It's basically the whole thing was very intuitive. I really liked it. And if you want to see a good use of the replay system, Custa actually did a stream where him and then eventually Space joined him from Team USA. And they broke down UK versus South Korea, and they provided a lot of really good insight to how pro players think and play. And they were really funny too, so that helps. So if you want to see like actual pros break down a game and what this feature means to the pro community, go watch his stream. I think it was either last night or maybe Saturday night, but you can find it on his stream. That was Custa. But Ed, did you try this? Like, did you have a chance to actually go in and mess around with this? And what do you think of it if you did?
Okay, so yes, I did have a chance to this. For those of you out there who are kind of wondering about this, you have to essentially download a whole client to use this
right now. Now, Jeff did confirm that it will be integrated to the main client when it goes live.
Yeah, it's kind of like its own, like where you go to select PTR, you would go and download like Overwatch World Cup here. So that's, if you ever want to see it, that's right now. And yes, I did do it. The time delay difference was the first thing I noticed.
Me too.
Like, I had it on my team. I'm like, wait a second. I don't know if I like this. And then I did follow, and it's one of those things where, in my mind, for me personally, it's not something I would use during the match.
Interesting.
Because like, I like the commentary. I like, not like being like, not worrying about like, okay, I may not be in the right position. I may not be following the right person, so on and so forth. And then you don't hear like, Jake and, ZP like announcing, because you can't time it up with like watching it on Twitch. because of the time delay. Now, if they kind of if they evened out, like if the viewer had the same time delay, then you could sync it up perfectly with the announcers,
Right.
and then that would be even better because then you could in practice you could time it perfectly when they're like, oh, this person, you could hit F7 and go to that player. You just know that's that player, and then you can see it. So I think that's something, a nice change they could make. Um,
Hmm.
but overall, that's the only knock I have on it. Like they knocked it out of the park on this.
Yeah.
Uh, it- like as far as analyzing and looking at, like, for someone like me, I play a lot of healer right now before I become an Ash main. Um, so I play a lot of healer. So that's something like I you can follow around some of these phenomenal healers and see how they are doing it, and then you can do it at your own leisure. You can go back. You can, like you said, Custa and Super went and did a VOD of the UK South Korea match. I know Jane said he's going to go through and do some of the reviews of the Overwatch World Cup matches himself because
Right.
that's kind of what he's known for. It's one of those things where it's the best tool ever to make yourself better
Right.
that they've ever implemented into the game, is just doing stuff like this. Um, I will, yeah, when I'm sitting down and watching, like when I sat down to watch, China versus South Korea, I wasn't immediately like, okay, I want to go in with no commentary and watch this game and try and just find my way around.
Hmm.
Like that's the biggest issue to me.
Do you think
Like,
do you think that could be solved if they just fed the commentators' audio directly into the client? Because
yes.
obviously the commentators are seeing it in real time, just like you would in the client. The only delay is coming through is through Twitch. So if they had an audio feed that you could turn on or off in the game client, do you think that would be enough to get you to watch it in the client? Or do you think
Yes.
okay.
100% yes. It's just like, because it's just silence,
Mm-hmm.
really. Like, you're just, they see a broader picture than we do
By far.
through casting, and they know, like, we can't analyze a match like they can. As much as we may think they're professionals at it, that's
Mm-hmm.
what they do. They have a whole team in the studio kind of telling them, like, hey, this
Right.
is what's happening. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this, and so on and so forth. So, like, if they put the commentary into this, I would enjoy it immensely better. Like, I would use that over like just watching it on Twitch.
I like it just because of the fact that it is real time and you can follow who you want. But I'm more excited for the fact that this eventually means we will get our own replays, and then I can go back and say, boy, when I really thought that was a good position, that was really not a good position to be in. So it will help players get better themselves at Overwatch, outside of just analyzing and watching pro plays like Jane does or like the pros do. So this whole system was actually amazing, and I didn't encounter any bugs at all. Like I was very surprised because Jeff
Neither
Kaplan,
did I.
he kind of, when he announced it in the dev interview, or the dev update, he was very like hardcore, like this is a test, this is a beta, we're really trying to figure this out. And I was like, okay, well, maybe it will be a little laggy, or maybe the sound will be off, or maybe you'll have input delay or stuff like that. I noticed no problems. Now there were problems because you can find them on the Reddit thread or on the forums and stuff, but none of them seemed major, and everybody that tried it basically echoes what we just said. Like they all really enjoyed
Mm-hmm.
it. So I am excited to see this feature come along. So speaking of dev interviews, we got another one today. It is focused on Ash. I won't really, go too in depth because it basically was all about Ash and her abilities and stuff like that. It was basically a glorified, like, 8-minute, plus announcement that she's on the PTR now. So if you want to try Ash, as we have, and as many other people have, because there was a queue right before the show, you can go on the PTR and try her right now. They also made some fixes to Reaper's shotgun, like we had talked about how they reduced the randomization and actually nerfed him rather than buffed his damage. Well, they have put the second changes in for his shotgun, so his shotgun should overall do more damage now. Hopefully, I haven't tested that, so don't hold me to that. If you really want some testing on that, I'm sure the guys over at Omnic Lab have already done that. But supposedly that is fixed now. But other than that, everything else on the PTR is still there. I did notice something that I didn't see in the patch notes is now for the skins and collectibles, there is a filter tab, and you can filter it by almost anything. You can filter it by event. You can filter it by owned or unowned. Like, this is something that I just randomly found while I was looking through Ash's skins. So
that was on a previous patch.
Okay, so that
that I remember me and I forgot when, but it was a sortable thing where for skins and cool. Stuff like that. You can search it by holidays and so on and so forth.
Cool. So that's on there too. I must have just missed that one.
So you could all search by Christmas skins because that's really the only skins you should be.
Well, now that Halloween's over, I would agree with that.
No. Year round.
No.
Yes. The reindeer roadhog year-round skin, mandatory.
That one is pretty good. But Doomfish is here to stay.
Zenyatta and Golden Nuts.
See, I like the Nutcracker, but I like the Cultist skin too. So just because of the voice line changes. So
all right, but it's the creepiest skin in the game.
It is. All right, so skins aside, let's talk about the World Cup. Now, I typically do the Overwatch League Network show, so this is going to hurt me to talk about this pretty much the least amount of stuff that we've talked about tonight, because the World Cup this year was fairly one-sided, which we will break down for you. So South Korea took home their third straight World Cup title. Yay, South Korea. Yay. I know a lot of us are disappointed, but they deserved it. Like, they came out and they absolutely deserved it. Jonak took home the MVP trophy. There's a little bit of scandal there if you want to go look that up. But I would argue that he probably deserves it. Out of, there were a lot of players that made their mark, but he made it to the finals. He definitely, was up there. I could make an argument for like Goushway or Leave, but in the end,
as long as XQC didn't win it, I'm good.
Right, and that's kind of where the controversy comes in, is XQC by far was kind of leading the fan votes, but the casters got to vote this year, and their votes outweighed the fan votes. So effectively, the casters said, yeah, we're not voting for XQC, we're going to give it to Jonak. And, that's a whole debate you can get into, and people are absolutely debating it. And Monte Cristo isn't doing us any favors because he's kind of fueling that debate. Like, he basically was streaming at the time, and he was like, yeah, casters get like heavily weighted votes, and they absolutely did not vote for XQC, and that made everybody rage because, he's a well-known Overwatch personality. But I last year I could make the argument that XQC could have deserved it. I still don't think he did, but he was in the finals. He played really well. You could at least entertain the idea. This year they finished third place. He played okay, not particularly well. There were many more tanks that played much better than he did. So even comparing him to his own role, you can't make that argument. It was purely fan vote. So I feel like, while I don't technically think Jonak was the MVP, I think he was definitely a more deserving of XQC in terms of play. What about you?
Mm-hmm. No, I completely agree. Like, XQC, all bonus votes for having to play Winston because he couldn't play Reinhardt because his right click on his mouse was broken.
That was pretty funny.
That was just, like, wanted him to play Reinhardt. Right click, and the thing that it went on for 2 maps.
Right.
Like,
it wasn't until intermission.
A new mouse in between maps. Like, I feel that's something that, probably could have been an easy fix.
And that wasn't
I mean,
even the match they lost. So
yeah, like it was like he had a box full of keyboards and mouses that they were giving away before the match. Why not just go out to the fan and be like, "Hey, can I borrow real quick?"
there, there's many reasons why I can't do that, but that is a great idea. I actually really loved, and this is a side note before we get into the results, but I really loved the death segments this year because I love Brandon's Sideshow. Like they bring like a goofy level of humor, but they still bring pretty good analysis to it. And I love, and I'm sad that Reinforce is no longer with Overwatch. Like he announced, I think this morning, that he is not going to be part of the talent team for 2019. But he brings a really good foil to those two because he is there like deadpan looking into the camera like, get me the heck out of here. And he brings like levity to the situation. But the whole desk crew, like Golden Boy, everything, like their energy was off the charts. Now their analysis outside of Reinforce wasn't always the greatest.
No, it was not.
But I think Reinforce, and this is why I'm sad, I think Reinforce kind of brought that around to an acceptable level. But I enjoy the energy.
Yeah.
So I am sad that he will not be continuing his Overwatch League journey. He said he's still going to, stream and do all that stuff. So I don't expect him to be gone. We may see him in Contenders. We may see him, somewhere else. We may see him back on a team. Who knows? Hey, we'll.
Yeah.
All right. So
yeah, I know. So MVP. So Jonak. All right. Jonak is always deserving of alcohol. Like he just the way he plays in the Overwatch World Cup. There are two players in my mind that maybe three that deserved it better than him. Well, the two for sure is one of his teammates, Fleta.
Mm-hmm.
Fleta went off like he just did. And the other is Gushui from China. And then it's like Jonak is in the top four, and the other person is Leave from China. So it's like those four. So Leave, Gushui, Fleta, Jonak. Those four to me were the top four in the Overwatch World Cup, just because a lot of it has to. Those were like four. They were all in the finals, and I feel like to be MVP, you be in the final. You can't be like, you can't be like Team UK. Someone like Fusions.
See, I can make an argument for Fusions because I think Fusions almost single-handedly beat US.
But the thing is Fusions played phenomenally, but you can't be MVP and be in fourth place.
I would agree with that.
So like it almost has to come from one of the top two teams, and luckily you had four people from the top two teams that played amazing in Fleta, Jonak, Leave, and Gushui. So like, it was just Jonak is fine. It's honestly
he's acceptable.
He's an acceptable MVP. It's just I would have probably picked Gushui over Jonak personally. Jonak probably would have been second or third.
Yeah, I would have probably picked Gushui as well.
But I can't. Nobody knew who Gushui was. Like, I don't know. Did you listen to the Con Before the Storm?
Not
podcast yet. So they asked, who's the one character one player that you're excited to see the most? And everyone's picking. Bob picked Muma. People picked Raucus. Totem.
Gushui.
Gushui.
We talked about it.
Most excited. Like I was like, yep, that sounds like a totem answer right there. And then he knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
Like Gushui was. Oh, God, one of the best Winstons I've just flat out seen, like period, ever, in this World Cup. So that's the big thing there. So, but I'm good with Jonak. I really am. He's decent at the game of Overwatch.
Yeah, he's all right, I guess. All right, so let's talk about some teams that weren't all right and some teams that were. So in our quarterfinal matchup, we have USA versus UK, which UK won 3-1 in a surprising upset. It boy, were we disappointed in that one. Um, I would
Yeah.
I would love to talk about this match, but really outside of Ilios, it wasn't a close match. Like, and there has been all kinds of drama that have come out of this. It's basically another year and another set of Sinatra drama, which if you don't know and you're interested in the drama, definitely go up Sinatra on Twitter with Mikey A from UK. That is some spicy stuff. Like, I would get into it, but we have other stuff to get into. But
Yep.
definitely go look that up because they both hit each other with some pretty sick burns, as the kids would say. So moving on, we have South Korea versus Australia. South Korea won that one 3-0. No surprise.
Wow.
China versus Finland went in an unexpected way, but also 3-0 in favor of China. And then France versus Canada. Canada won that one 3-0. So all fairly one-sided. And that was actually the match, the Canada versus France match, where XQC played with half a mouse. So the fact that they were able to beat France with unoptimal comps actually says how good of a team Canada was until the semifinals. So in the semifinals, we had China versus Canada, and China walked all over them. Like, China just dumpstered them. Like, Canada had no answers for it. And then UK versus South Korea. South Korea actually won that one 2-0, but UK tied 2 matches.
It was a close 2-0. As weird as it was a very close 2-0.
It's strange to think that the team that basically went into this last place, like the underdog of underdogs, UK gave South Korea the hardest time in this tournament, because basically what that set up a bronze medal match of Canada versus UK and China versus South Korea for the gold medal match. So the bronze medal match was actually the closest match of everything, ending in 3-2 with Canada taking the bronze medal. That was actually a really good match. So I'd hate to say it, but if you want to see a good World Cup match, go watch that match, because that is actually a very good match. But the finals were China versus South Korea. And going into this, neither one of them have dropped a map. Now, South Korea tied a couple of maps, but they haven't technically lost a map. And China didn't lose a map at all. Like, didn't tie, didn't lose anything. So a lot of people were really hyped for this final. They were like, okay, China's going to bring the pain. They're going to, show us what they can really do. They're going to, get their vengeance for the Shanghai Dragons and all that. And they just got, like, absolutely dumpstered. Like, the worst, I would actually say, it was probably the worst match of the whole tournament outside of the last, couple rounds of US versus UK. Like, it was extremely one-sided. Like, we saw nothing from Leave. There was certain maps where the tanks for South Korea never died. Like, it was so one-sided. And like I said, I normally co-host Overwatch League Network, and we usually do deep dives and go into all that, but I can't even do that. It was South Korea and China show up to a fight. South Korea walks away with 5 or 6 of its members, and the map moves on. Like, that was literally the 4 maps.
Yeah. I will say this. Who called China in the championship match?
That would be you, sir.
This guy. The thing is and good. I saw a good, not comparison, but rationale. So China has a bad, feeling about it because of the Shanghai Dragons.
Right.
People, when they think China Overwatch, they think Shanghai Dragons, rightfully so, because Shanghai was the only pro Overwatch team, and they were god awful. The reason that China World Cup team was so much better than the Shanghai Dragons is all these players have turned 18 within the past year.
Mm-hmm. Outside of Leave.
Like,
Leave is still
outside
our
of
age.
Leave. Yeah. So, Sky is over 18.
Right.
But Sky was the only one eligible to play in the Overwatch League.
Mm-hmm.
All the rest of these players are not or were not eligible to play in the Overwatch like, so they have a phenomenal Overwatch like up and coming like players. It's just Shanghai could only do so much because you know these players weren't 18. Now, if you remember back in the Overwatch League Season 1, the head coach for Shanghai, I forget his name, actually got in some decent trouble for trying to offer contracts to minors.
Right.
My guess is a few of these players were offered contracts for the Shanghai Dragons.
It's possible.
And it's just one of those things where, so China like kind of didn't come out of nowhere, but just the expectations for China were so low because of South Korea. They're not South Korea, because of the Shanghai Dragon. The UK, as much as I want to say was the closest match, and it technically was, I honestly think UK versus South Korea was probably one of the best matches to watch.
I would agree with that as well.
I mean, they tied South Korea on 2 maps. Plain and simple. They tied South Korea. Like, if UK did not play in the finals, I believe they would have been China or Canada, either one, and they would have faced South Korea in the finals. They pulled the US from last year,
basically,
where US ran into South Korea and then they just stopped. And the UK just came out of nowhere. Like, no one saw this coming. It was insane. But oh my god, that finals, I got a map and a half in, and I'm like, it's over. I honestly stopped watching. I was like, there's other esports finals going on right now. There was WoW, Hearthstone, StarCraft, all that stuff was going on at the same time. I'm like, I already know what's going to happen now. Like,
yeah,
China was just not set up to play South Korea, and there's a reason. Like, all these teams, like, as annoying as Michael is on Twitter, he made a good point. All these teams, why are they looking or like getting upset? It's because they've lost all their South Korean players.
Right.
Like, Animal, everyone's like, oh, why are they bringing it? Animal killed it on Lucio and everything, and Joan. They have 0 weaknesses in the World Cup. So I don't know. What was your overall take from the match? Or any standout players moments? What are some of the things that stood out for you?
So we touched on a lot of them already, but I do want to go back to Fusions. Like, I think Fusions deserves, and he got a 2-way contract with Boston announced today. So he definitely deserves that. I think we'll see him in the full roster. He last week I kind of said he might be a step down from Christopher. I absolutely take that back. Like, he was an upgrade, like, by far. His Reinhardt play was superb. He also played pretty good on Winston. Like I said, he at certain points looked like he was single-handedly beating the US. And that's not true. Overwatch is a team game. He had a lot of help from his supports, DPS, all that, but he definitely made a strong impression, as did a lot of the EU players. Like, Finland had some trouble, but they still had, some pretty cool moments. France, even though they went out pretty early as well, there was some pretty good plays there. I mean, like you said, Korea as a whole, they didn't have any weaknesses. Every one of their players, you could make an argument that they were the best player in their position in the world at that time. Like, they all stepped up. Like, there was no weakness, there was no holes to exploit, which is kind of what I said had to happen in order for somebody to beat them. And honestly, the only team that came close was UK, like we said. And the only reason they came close is because they were able to go toe-to-toe with them on the front line. The only reason UK lost is because they couldn't keep up in the other areas. Like, they didn't have, Carpe and Fleta in the back line just dominating. Stuff like that. So overall, when looking at this World Cup, it definitely wasn't as exciting as the past years. And I'm not just saying that because I was live at BlizzCon last year. Like, obviously, that's going to be a lot more exciting and stuff like that. It's just all the matches this year felt really one-sided. So I actually did a little digging, and we only saw 3 matches not result in a sweep this year. And, one of them was still kind of a sweep because UK didn't technically win a map, but we'll consider it not a sweep. Whereas last year, only 1 match resulted in a sweep. The rest of them were 3-2. So, some variation, but it just wasn't as exciting. And I don't know if that was the meta, if it was just the teams selected or what. I don't know. I wasn't as excited for this year after quarterfinals. And, you had kind of mentioned that you kind of checked out in the finals. I did too. I hate to say it, but I had the finals up and I finished watching Daredevil on the other screen. I was like, oh, cool. China's getting beat again. Oh, cool. China lost the point. Oh, China killed somebody. Oh, nope. Korea brought it back. All right, cool. Let's go back to finishing Daredevil. So,
Yeah.
But like compared to past years, were you as excited? Or like you've watched all of them at home, so I'm obviously going to be much more hyped for last year's because I was there in the crowd, cheering USA while Flower was destroying us. But beyond that, I was pumped for the other matches, and I just felt like they were a lot closer. Whereas this year, I don't know, that it just didn't seem the same, and I can't detach that from, was it because I was there, or were the matches just not as good this year?
Okay, so to ease your worries, the matches were just not good this year.
Okay, good.
And there is one word that explains why. Goats.
Oh, yeah, you got to bring it down to the goats.
It really was. That made or break everything.
Mm-hmm.
That it really did. I mean, the prevalence of goats. All right, so Jane. Those of you out there who know, Jane hates goats.
Mm-hmm.
Constantly makes fun of goats. Constantly rips on goats.
Mm-hmm.
China versus Canada. What happens? Oh yeah, Canada runs goats.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you may hate it, but it's effective, and it's a matter of who is most effective on it or who doesn't run it. So, like, China, for instance, ran anti-goats.
A lot.
They did a lot. So the thing is and Jane kind of protruded this, is he said they kind of predicted going up against Finland.
Mm-hmm.
And Finland runs super goats. So they had practice going up against goats. Now, when they go up against China, they don't have a comp to go up against China. They were planning on going up against Finland and goats, and China didn't run goats.
Right.
So what did Canada do? They ran goats. Well, China rolled through goats.
Mm-hmm.
Plain and simple. They rolled through Finland, which ran goats. Rolled through Canada, who ran goats. As soon as China hit a matchup that didn't run goats in South Korea, they got steamrolled.
Right.
Plain and simple. And it kind of goes US versus UK. US. All right, let's not talk about that. That was ugly. That was just ugly.
No, I think that's
UK
good to bring up because US ran anti-goats on Ilios and looked dominant. Like, that was the US team we expected. And then after that, they never touched anti-goats again. Like, they didn't play Pharah. They tried Doomfist, but it wasn't in Doomfist level comps, and it looked bad. Like, it just looked bad.
Yep. Meanwhile, UK is running goat. I mean, you have Kib on Roadhog. It's a goats, but it's a form.
It's just triple tank, triple support.
Yeah, triple tank, triple support. But it essentially goes.
Uh-huh.
So UK was running that with Kib on Roadhog, and Kib on Roadhog was doing great. And, they steamrolled the US after that. They went up against South Korea, who was a very anti, they're just like, we're South Korea. We don't have to run gimmicky goats to win. And they 2-0'd United Kingdom. Now, United Kingdom played the best against South Korea, but essentially they still never took a map off of them.
Right.
So it was a matter of who is the best anti-goats team. And who's stupid enough to run goats?
Right.
Like, if anything, the Overwatch World Cup proved to us that goats is just it's over. What's the proper word I'm thinking of?
It's too easy
It's
to
hyped up.
execute.
It's hyped up too much.
Yeah. It's too easy to execute for the return that you get.
Exactly. Like you lose one person to goats and then a domino.
Yeah.
And that's really all you need to do to anti-goat. Is you need to take out one character and it just dominoes from there. And it's just there's a reason the two teams were in the championship match.
Right. I do like the fact that Custa broke down in that same, review the different types of goats. And there's basically like a rock, paper, scissors in goats comps. Like I never thought of this, but when he said it, I said, that makes a lot of sense. Like Zenyatta counters Ana goats because his Discord orb, puts out more damage than she can heal. But Ana counters Moira goats because she has the Bionade. But Moira counters Zenyatta goats because she can output the healing needed to counteract Discord Orb. So the fact that this one composition, the only thing you really switch off, unless you're UK and run Roadhog, because no other team really ran Roadhog for a significant amount of time, is one healer, and that's what changes. I think stuff needs to change, and this kind of circles back to Ashe. I don't know if Ashe is enough to do that alone. Like, I think other things need to change with it. Like, and honestly, I'd love to throw out some ideas, but I don't have any ideas on how to change it outside of really nerfing some characters into the ground. And I Overwatch doesn't want to do that. Like, you could absolutely nerf Reinhardt and Diva into the ground and goats would not be viable. You could nerf Zarya into the ground and goats would be much less viable. But there's no, like, I've thought about this a lot because unlike most people, I like watching goats because I think it's fun just to watch 6 characters run at each other and hammer away. I don't like watching it. I don't like watching it every match, but I do find the joy in watching people just slam into each other and see who comes out. I don't like that is the optimal strategy in every situation. It's the same argument I had with Dive. I didn't like that teams could say, all right, we're gonna run double sniper. Okay, double sniper didn't work, let's go dive. I don't like that. I think the meta we had before goats became prevalent was probably the most balanced meta because you were heavily counterpicked. So we'll have to see how this turns out. I mean, we have contenders coming up, and contenders is usually a lot more experimental. So maybe we'll see some more anti-goat stuff coming out. Maybe we'll see like some Ashe hamster comps, like something crazy where you're just knocking them up in the air every 5 seconds and they can't move forward, or Ashe May Doomfist comps, something crazy, like, because we have started to see a little bit of rise of popularity with May, because May is actually a really good counter to goats on a lot of maps, because if you can split them, if you can freeze a couple of them, it produces that domino effect you talked about. So I am happy to hear that it was not just the way I felt, that the matches were not as good this year. I am also sad to hear that they were just not as good, because this is the third time I said it, but I want to do a deep dive into these matches, and but
it was hard. It's impossible.
Like, I could deep dive the US versus UK, a couple of maps. Like there were, I'd say, probably 2 close maps. The map US won, and then the second map was fairly close. Beyond that, UK just got in their head, and you could see that there was a lot of stuff going on. And then Canada versus UK, and maybe UK versus South Korea. But UK versus South Korea has already been done by Custa, and I can't provide any better insight than he can. So, all right. Well, I think that will wrap it up for us tonight. I don't plan on producing another, Heroes Never Die Overwatch League Network Infinity War episode. So I think about an hour and 40 minutes, an hour and 30 minutes is a pretty good show time. So If you'd like to help the show, the best way you can do that is, provide us a review on iTunes or, whatever you get your podcast from. Constructive criticism is always welcome. We'll take it to heart. We'll fix it. Some guy said he didn't like Ed's microphone at one point, so Ed went out and bought a new microphone, and now he sounds pretty to the ears.
Exactly.
So constructive criticism is always worth it. Be sure to leave us, whatever review you want, but 5 stars would be appreciated. Now, we do have a lot of stuff going on. We have our Overwatch Recall, which is basically our podcast directory of all Overwatch League, and Path to Pro podcasts. You can find that on our website, owlnshow.com/OWRecall. Totem will get back to recording episodes whenever he comes back from the audio abyss, so look for that. But you can find that at OWRecall on Twitter or www.owlnshow.com/weeklyrecall. So, Ed, would you like to read our social media stuff?
All right. Well, at least for Heroes, so you can reach us on email at hndoverwatch@gmail.com. You can reach us on Twitter at hndoverwatch. We do have a website, and that is OWLNshow.com, and that's where we'll post all these podcasts, any videos that Spider sets to make about Bash. And then we stream live on Twitch in a normal week, a non-BlizzCon week. So we're Twitch affiliates, so come support the show by subscribing to our Twitch channel, all that fun stuff. Subscribe. We do record twice a week normally. So Overwatch League Network is Mondays at 6 p.m. Pacific. Heroes Never Die is Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific. And then host streams will usually be held Thursdays and Fridays at 7:30 p.m. Pacific. Again, it's a weird time of year because running into BlizzCon, and then in a few weeks we're going to run into Thanksgiving, and then the next month is just Christmas month, and it's just it's going to be interesting, but that's literally how every podcast goes out there. You can also reach us on Discord at discord.me/OWLN show. You can reach us on YouTube at youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. You can reach me personally on the Twitter sphere at @EdinarOverwatch. And then, Spider, where can they reach you on Twitter or social media?
You can find me on Twitter at SpiderGD. You can find our missing host, Totemly Drunk, at Totemly Drunk CTR. You can find the missing co-host of Overwatch League Network, who is slated to make his glorious return eventually, at Slambo Overwatch. That is Slambo. If you would like to find the show Twitter for Overwatch League Network, it is at OWLN Show. That will do it for us tonight. Have a good night.
Have a good one, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Overwatch League Network. Be sure to follow the show on Twitter at OWLN Show. The theme music for OWLN is the main theme and victory theme guitar remix by Michael Mack.